Well, hello everybody, and everybody who's online. So we actually have a pleasure of having Autobahn Labs coming here, and Brandon O'Leary and Asad Lahani, they are two representatives and who supervise a lot of programs in Autobahn. Just to start, maybe with Brandon, his career path is fascinating. He started with Middlebury College, which where my wife was learning Russian language with spies, CIA spies. And then she went to MIT, got a PhD in organic chemistry, and then had a lot of really cool experiences. And at some point became a vice chancellor. He started basically a program at UMass Worcester in medical school in innovation, and something what Kevin is doing here as well. So he started a lot of companies. One of them is Allsterics. I think, no, he's co-founded with Allsteric Capital, but he has been involved in several companies. Asad Al-Hani, he's also associate member of the Autobahn, and he's coming from England, right? Undergrad from Cambridge, yeah, and then Cold Spring Harbor and CRISPR technology. So he is like one of the pioneers of this approaches. So both of them are highly skilled in biochemistry, chemistry, cover a lot of area and basically know a lot of interesting, very diverse directions. So it would be really nice to hear their perspective of what is a good fundable project and a good place to start a company. So that, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Nikolai. Hi, everybody. I'm Brendan O'Leary, CEO of Autobahn. Autobahn is a biotech academic accelerator, and we're just going to spend a few minutes telling you what that means and why we think it's important. So, as many of you know, a lot of academic research, as exciting as it is, it cannot be reproduced with industrial fibers. So the rate of reproducibility, depends on what paper you read, but in some cases, it's as high as 2/3 of experiments can't be reproduced by an outside lab. And so that, in particular with industry, is a big impediment from industry more frequently licensing and translating technology from academia, into clinical trials and ultimately into drugs. And so what Autobahn seeks to do is help serve as a solution where we identify incredible projects in academia, and then we put in some amount of money to de-risk or validate these academic discoveries to a quality standard that potential partners will then say, yeah, I believe that. And yes, I'm going to give you $10 million to continue this program, et cetera. We also, in addition to identifying and de-risking, we typically work up transaction details and agree to them with the universities that make things really set up on a silver platter for potential academic industrial partners. So not only are we finding ideas for them, not only are we de-risking them for them, but then we also offer up pre-negotiated deals to industry. And so that's the general model that Autobahn has. And we were founded about 4.5 years ago, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the history. But if you want to think about a tagline for Autobahn, it's at the bottom of the slide here. So we seek to be a high throughput de-risking engine for academic biotech. Currently, Autobahn has 7 university partners that's listed on this, this slide. In addition, we're probably adding 5 more university partners this year. Go into a little bit more detail on that. Being a university partner with Autobahn means that we have negotiated a master agreement, a collaboration agreement, standard SRA agreements, et cetera, et cetera. So there's should be very low friction for us coming in, seeing some of the projects, like many of the ones we've seen this morning here, and instantly being able to say, yes, we really like this. Here are the things we think we need to do, and then everything's already pre-negotiated. That being said, you know, and our primary sourcing pool comes from our partner institutions. We are looking for the absolute best ideas in academic biotech worldwide. So it doesn't have to come from one of our partner institutions, although we typically, if we find something outside our network, we try to utilize our partner institutions to add value to these projects. So we're in late stage negotiations with Michigan and shortly Duke. This is our second visit to a Penn State campus. So we spent a full day last month, Saad and I did at State College, and a really great day there. Already this half day here so far has been really productive, and we thank you all for your participation and for hosting us.
Hi, I'm Saad. I'll quickly just go over the kinds of ideas we're looking for at Autobahn. As Brendan mentioned earlier, we really like to fund, we would love to fund everything in biotech, anything we find compelling, but at certain points we have to narrow our focus. And so these are what we consider in-scope ideas versus out of scope. Anything that is novel biology in need of validation. We love new targets that have, you know, substance behind them that are implicated in disease that aren't being pursued by others, that ultimately can meet an unmet medical need, have potentially been overlooked by pharma, by other biotech. And so those kinds of projects are really our bread and butter. And we love innovative approaches, new modalities that may be able to go after those targets. And those are the kinds of projects we love looking at. Projects that tend to be out of scope can be those that focus exclusively on reagents, tools, diagnostics, and medtech. We haven't expanded our focus to those areas yet. We also tend to shy away from Me Too drugs or drugs that are being repurposed because the IP situation tends to get tricky there. Ultra rare diseases, while we would love to do, it's more difficult to make a business case for that at this point, and so that also tends to fall out of scope, although we do look at rare diseases. So 1,000 cases a year tends to be the rough threshold for an initial evaluation, and we also tend to shy away from infectious diseases just due to the mutation burden and difficulty in designing drugs that can target infectious disease causing strains and so forth. And so ultimately our goal is to take ideas that have this novel biology, that have this unmet medical need, and to turn those valuable academic insights potentially into therapeutics. And so what we love to do is really find those ideas and then come up with a project work plan that can take a little capital infusion, utilize some industry resources, and get from that idea to some incredible result. And the way we like to frame that is if we can invest up to $1 million for a data readout that is tremendous, that can be very appealing to then go and build a company on, potentially raise more money around. That is our ideal kind of project. So $1 million, 12 months is sort of the ideal way we want to pursue this. And we can try to add value through various different means. We take on projects where typically the first step will be validating the target outside of that academic setting, confirming the academic investigators' insights, and then we have resources that we can utilize to our partners, such as creating lead series, optimizing the compounds and leveraging these proprietary relationships that we have with CROs. Brendan will briefly talk about one of our partners called Evotech, where we do most of our work. But we have those relationships and we're expanding those relationships as well to do some of this work where we can validate targets, conduct high throughput screening, conduct efficacy and toxicity assays, and really utilize our advisory network, folks with 20 to 40 years of experience in drug development, to provide sort of this $1 million 12-month paradigm and really advance a novel drug candidate. Our goal is to fund up to 15 new projects per year under this model, and we would like to get them to the stage where these companies are ready for IND enabling work, and they can be ready to be spun out. And we typically tend, if we really love a project and want to continue investing in it, we can go up to $5 million over the lifetime of the project. And so just in terms of diligence criteria, my day job is as a search and evaluation analyst, and these are some of the criteria we use to understand a project or a project proposal. Our entire team is made of PhD scientists. All our advisors have advanced degrees, have a lot of experience in these fields. And so the benefit of having these pre-negotiated terms with institutes is our entire focus ends up being on the science and much less so on the business case. And so initially, we just want to come in, find novel and compelling science, ask whether the target is indeed druggable, what different approaches are to potentially go after this target, what the level of validation is there compelling genetic evidence? Has there already been orthogonal validation by other labs where you can be convinced that this is a good target to go after, but some people just haven't gone after it for whatever restrictions, and what the probability of technical success is. Internally, we like to say we're not going to go after KRAS, right? That's something that companies have funded for decades at this point, and they're just at a very hyper competitive field. But we want that next sort of very druggable, compelling target that will have an outsized patient impact. And so the impact opportunity be evaluated based on what the unmet medical need is, what the competitive landscape looks like, how differentiated this approach is from typical approaches out there, and what the potential looks like in terms of partnering. And like all company building efforts, we love IP as well. Although I will say that's not a prerequisite for the programs we evaluate. Often during the course of a program, we will be generating novel chemical matter, and that can also be the source of IP around that. And ultimately, the question then becomes, is this something we can develop? Are there well-validated preclinical models that are available to achieve preclinical POC? Unfortunately, sometimes we have targets that are very compelling to drug and with new modalities, but it's just tricky to go after them. And so having well-defined preclinical models where that biology can be tested generally eases our path towards this clinical proof of concept. And if there's a differentiated target product profile, that's definitely a bonus as well. So I'll turn it back to Brendan to talk about some of our investors and how Autobahn came to be.
As I mentioned, so Autobahn was founded about 4.5 years ago by our 3 founding investors. Samsara BioCapital is a very large biotech venture capital firm based in Palo Alto. Evotec is one of the largest CROs in the world. Not only are they an investor, but they are a key partner. While we are not required to do a lot, all of our outsourced work with Evotec, we do get preferred rates, preferred access, and priority frequently with Evotec. And our third investor is a very large, very private family office called KCK. So I won't go through this entire slide, but in case you don't know what Evotec's capabilities encompass, this slide does a good job of talking about all the capabilities that they have. Importantly, when we look at a new idea, we'll talk a little. Talk about this right here, actually. So why don't I talk a little bit about the work process and how we evaluate a program, and then talk about how we'll bring Evotech into it shortly. So there are 3 steps to initial due diligence in working with Autobahn. The first is an intro meeting protocol. And we do not require a pitch deck at that point. A 30-minute discussion by Zoom with our team is usually enough to help us figure out whether this is something we want to continue looking at. The next step is we jump into some initial due diligence with our small team to understand more things about the program. We send you guys countless emails asking questions and try to get a better understanding of these groups, these ideas. Once we all pass that initial due diligence, if we decide we want to move ahead, we ask that you present to our scientific advisor. And at that point, we do need a presentation, but we are happy to work with you on those presentations. And the meeting with our scientific advisory board, which Saad hinted at earlier, is a very distinguished group of drug developers, all professional drug developers, and with many years of experience. We have never, not once, had a professor present to our scientific advisory board and feel like it was a waste of time. Everybody feels like it's very valuable, even if the answer ends up being. Soon as scientific advisory board gives us a go-ahead to continue spending time and resources on the project, the next thing we do typically with Evotech is create a work plan that is very specific for that particular project. And detailed. So this is like a 10-page work plan. Here are the key experiments that need to be done. Here are the costs. Here are the timelines. And we work iteratively with the professor to come to a work plan that we all agree with. One thing to keep in mind, in particular at Autobahn, that sets us apart from many other groups that kind of do similar thing. We are highly collaborative with our PMs. So it's not something you give us and throw over the wall and you don't see it again. We need you to work with us. We want you on calls with us twice a month and with Evotech. We want you contributing to the work plan. We want your ideas about the back and forth, the brainstorm, all of it, and then continuing on with the project eventually as a founder or a spin-off company that we do. One thing to also mention, so what's the end game once we take on a project and start investing money? We're doing these things. So in the ideal world, we're investing the $1 million in fewer than 12 months to get such an incredible scientific result that the program is now eligible to be just a full-blown Series A venture-backed company. And our investors get first dibs on these spin-outs. But it's under very kind terms. It's only right at first negotiation. And should they decide not to negotiate, or we decide along with the PIs and the universities, we don't like the deal terms they're offering, then we're free to spin it out to someone else, other investors. Or, not every idea needs to be a company. Some ideas should just be licensed, right away. And so we also help facilitate all of that. And we work, again, very collaborative with the PIs and the universities. We have pre-negotiated terms about the seed companies that we create when we get to that spot, which are very university and PI friendly, where typically the universities and PIs together in the spin out are getting roughly 35% of the company, and also very attractive licensing terms for the intellectual property. And that's pretty standard across most of our university partnerships. Here, I mean, we have no favorite therapeutic areas, although we tend to see an awful lot of cancer things, just like everybody else in the industry. As I mentioned before, our partner universities are primary sourcing institutions. However, we look for ideas worldwide, in academia, or what we call peri-academic. So if you already did a spin out and you haven't raised $30 million, that's fine. We have the ability to work with new spin outs from universities. We have the ability to invest directly in those spin outs. So we have ultimate flexibility. And just looking at last year, the number of projects that we went into in-depth due diligence on, almost 100 from our partner universities, and then over 30 from non-partner universities. Our current pipeline of programs that have been funded is shown here. In the initial vision of Autobahn, it was $5 million to get to essentially something ready for an IND enabling instance. We will still do that. However, we are moving the model much more toward that high throughput de-risk engine. $1 million, 12 months to get some incredible scientific result. And this is our very little team. We are actively hiring right now and looking for more talented people like Assad to help lead our search and evaluation efforts, particularly with our partners. In the ideal world, Assad and his other associates will be responsible for 2, maybe 3 academic institutions. And Assad would be here, for instance, at Penn State, like 4 days a month, and walking the halls, talking to professors, doing a seminar, et cetera, et cetera. And in the ideal world, we want you guys to be asking, when's Assad coming next? I've got to talk to him about this, and this. That's what we want to do. We want to be highly value add, even for projects that aren't going to work for us. Because if we can give great feedback, great value add feedback, and constructive feedback on projects we're not necessarily interested in, that's just going to lead to a higher probability that we hear about the ideas that we, that do fit. So that is our goal. In terms of reaching out to us at any time, if you have a great idea, of course, we encourage you to include the tech transfer folks, but it is not required. Even if you just have a question about something, just email us, anybody on the list, and we'll get back to you very quickly. We strive to give feedback, constructive feedback on any project we see within 30 days. So that's another commitment. Right? And with that, that's it. Any questions for Assad or myself?
Just have a question. During the process, for example, it's not one. And we're doing efficacy study or safety studies. If you write a grant or publish paper, how does that work? It has to be about the plan of the or other.
So we will never get in the way of publication and your academic mission period. We will give suggestions about maybe you should hold off publication until tech transfer files the patent. If we are working collaboratively on a project with you, where we are actually adding intellectual value, yeah, it'd be great if the side could get his name on the paper. If it's truly collaborative IP that was jointly generated, then that's something we discuss with the tech transfer office and figure that.
I had a similar similar question in a different way. For example, if a project gets selected and you generate, I'm sure a lot of data when you spend first $1 million in the first year. And that could decide whether the project will go far further or really has to go all through $1 million or has to be discarded before that. So the same thing about publication. If you have that generated that data, can we use that one in the publication notice?
Yes. So, and on top of that, if we decide, after seeing the data that we don't want to move forward with the project, the university and PI get everything back. So, and you're free to do what you want with it.
So what is the model for a typical partnership, like with a PI? Let's say you can go with the project, and then what would be the negotiated deal, rough terms?
Sure.
So that's actually,
So, well, initially, in Autobahn's early days, the founders thought that every single idea we'd immediately spin out into a spin-out company. And so a lot of documents reflect that. What we've learned over time is that's really premature, and the only people benefiting from that are the lawyers. What we prefer to do is, start small, $1 million. It's an option deal. We all agree on what the work plan is, and then following that, at that point, we would want to form a spin-out company. For the spin-out company, typically the university plus the PI is getting about 35% of the equity. In addition, we have pre-negotiated license terms, which I can't talk about in detail right here, but they're pretty standard across all of our universities that are very university PI friendly. We really want the PIs to be co-founders and active members of the spin out to the extent that they're university.
basically it's around 30%, and then but that doesn't protect the PI or the university from the further dilution.
So that actually depends a little bit, because some universities, not to get too far into the weeds, cannot have over 20% ownership in a spin-out. In those cases, we figure out a way to give anti-dilution in Series A. But if it is a simple thing, then we much prefer about 30-35%.
I think we have a question online. Noah, did you want to ask a question?
Oh, yes. Hi, thank you. The question I had was in the past few years that you have been working with academic institutions, is the work plan mostly executed at the CRO, or is part of the work done at the academic institution as well?
Great question. Really depends on the project. So for things that are a little later stage, where we're trying to do lead optimization, create a high throughput screening assay, that type of thing, most of that's done outside of our CRO. But we will go early. And we will do SRAs in your lab if we're looking at a new target and just need to validate it in a different way, etc. So it's really all over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you the technology resides with the Penn State or the university in the initial stage, or it's licensed to Autobahn when you initiate the work?
So initially, when we're doing the first project, the IP is just sitting with the university. And we have an option, an exclusive option, to license it at the end of this period of investigation. And then once it goes at that point, the IP is still owned by the university, but we have a defined license for this, for them. Any other questions?
Nothing online. If anyone else from Zoom room wants to chime in or ask a question, you can unmute or type in the chat.
Maybe you can switch to, can you switch to, you're gonna switch.
For mine?
Yeah.
Oh, no, they,
Thank you.
oh, yes, I was gonna ask, I asked, Brennan, yeah, if we can see folks, we can definitely. Yes, over there where it says, oh, yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Any more questions, going once, twice?
Hi.
Oh, yes, there you go.
Just a quick question. Can you define more about your defined license? Do you mean that you become a proprietary of the developed product? And what is for the investigator and the university for those?
So
What benefit will get university and the things and the other?
So in terms of what the PI gets from a license,
Right.
your economics flow through the university. And so almost all universities have a defined revenue share for licenses. You know, many places, the PIs are getting 30% of any revenue, net revenue that comes in. But it really depends on the university. We have no control of it. But where we try to sweeten the pie for the PIs is also by offering equity in the companies.
And the second question, how many product maybe I missed in your presentation, how many product you developed from like you bring from the start toward the end of the development toward the industrial shell, you know, like so it's already produced and was not repurposed or rebought by other company and the original license was lost. You know how it's happened. The product is bought by somebody else and then university and the PI losing any profit from this.
So we have not yet sold the company, although we've now formed, I believe, 8 spin-out companies based on the pipeline. And those are at various stages of partnering discussions and fundraising discussions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And as you said, not everything translates to a spin-out company. Have you done any licensing also yet?
We're actively looking to license 2 of our programs right now instead of raising money for them. So those are, it's a real-time thing going on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.